suggest the best way for those of us who dissent against the views and methodology of the concerned student movement to try and combat this change that's occurring in our student body and just campuses across America?
Well, I think that the most potent thing that concerned students have done is they push the language that we refuse to fight. So that they say things, that they spout tautologies like racism exists. I agree. That was one of my fundamental premises at the beginning, right? Racism on an individual level definitely exists, of course. You'd be a fool to deny it. And then they say, okay, well, because there are individuals who are racist, everything is racist. You have to reject the logic. You have to call on them to show evidence. And you need some people with backbone. I mean, really, we now live in a country where the ultimate argument ender is you're a racist, right? This is basically how everybody is silenced. Tim Wolf is a racist. He's a racist. How do we know he's a racist? Because he's a white guy, which is racist. Right? By the way, it is totally incredible to me that Tim Wolf is supposed to be this great beneficiary of white privilege, but your football coach who gets paid $3.1 million a year and is a white guy, right? He's not a beneficiary of white privilege because he sides with concerned student 1950. Right? He's a good guy, so he's not a white privilege guy, or at least he recognizes his white privilege. But Tim Wolf has to lose his job. Right? So the answer is that the sophistry of the left has no impact unless you internalize it. If you just refuse to accept the narrative that they are pushing, there's nothing they can do to you. What would have happened at this university if Tim Wolf had looked at Jonathan Butler and said, okay, so what? Right? Really, what would have happened? What would have happened if he had said to Jonathan Butler, you stepped into my car? Right? If he said to Jonathan Butler, every racist incident that was reported to the police was fully investigated as appropriate under local, state, and federal law, which is true. Okay, if he had said that, and Jonathan Butler had kept hunger striking, do I think Jonathan Butler was going to die for his beliefs? I think Mommy and Daddy, who are worth $20 million, probably bought him a popsicle.
I'm doing questions online, so all of these are going to be from Twitter. So David R. Shorten at D. Shorten Music wants to know, in the ideological war between left and right, what are the strongest weapons on both sides?
Well, the strongest weapon for the left is always character attacks, right? You're a racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe. It's actually the only argument that they have, generally speaking. They disagree with you, therefore you're a bad person. Right? This is what basically Barack Obama said this with regard to anybody who objects to his Syrian refugee idea. Right? You're a bad person, you hate children, you hate women, you fear widows, right? You're a bad person. We can't actually have a logical discussion about the issue, you're just a bad person. That's the strongest argument on the left side. The strongest argument on the right side, presumably, which is why I'm on the right, is evidence and logic. The problem is that in an argument, evidence and logic actually tend to lose to character assault. Character assault tends to win. Because once you've been labeled a racist, no one wants to hear your evidence and your argument. And so, as I have frequently said, the biggest mistake that people on the right make is that when they are called a racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe, they then proceed to try and have a normal conversation with the person who labeled them this. Right? The proper answer to you're a racist is not, you know what, let's have a discussion about race in America. The proper answer to you're a racist is, no, you're an a-hole. Because for somebody to call you a racist without evidence is an a-hole thing to do. Right? You are not supposed to just drop character charges on people without any evidence of any sort. You're supposed to be able to back it up. So the right needs to start using that argument. It's effective. I know from personal experience. And it is a useful tool, because until we can get to the point where the left and the right actually have discussions about policy and not about character, nothing is going to happen that's good in American politics.
You like to discuss character attacks that the left likes to use to get their victories. Is how President Obama won in 2008 and 2012. Mm-hmm. Do you see Ted Cruz going after Carl Quintanilla at the CNBC debate as a change, as the Republicans starting to wake up?
I thought it was great. I think that my view is that, and I've said this before, if Republicans had a choice between winning the 2016 election and totally destroying the media where it stands, I would absolutely pick the latter. The mainstream media is a disaster area. They are corrupt from top to bottom, and I'm glad. And the truth is that corruption can only exist on the back of Republican stupidity, because it's Republicans who go on these shows and then give them the patina of legitimacy that they don't deserve. Right? It's Republicans who go on. I mean, what was amazing to me is when the George Stephanopoulos stuff started to break. George Stephanopoulos gave lots of money to the Clinton Foundation. I remember sitting there being like, wait, he was their chief of staff. Like, why is this a shock? Why is this taking him down? Nobody realized this for the last 20 years? And the reason is because Republicans, there's sort of a collective action problem in that places like ABC News and they say, I want to be on TV and I'm happy to treat George Stephanopoulos really well and pretend he's objective in order to get on TV. So John McCain will do that. If Republicans en masse just started saying to people at the top of interviews, this isn't even be mean, it's just real. I'm a conservative, you're a leftist, that's my bias, your bias is now clear, let's have a conversation. It would totally change the tenor of the debate. There's a reason CNN and MSNBC don't like to have me on, because I actually do this. There's multiple videos of me doing this to various things. I did a HuffPost Live last week, right? Because people's biases matter. No one is unbiased. And the so-called objective media it doesn't exist. I thought what Cruz did was great. I think the Republicans should keep it up, and if they don't keep it up, they're going to lose.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm back. So, Blaine at Anime Snob 25 wants to know, this is a really good question though, do you feel the majority of concerned student 1950 are truly devious or just misguided?
I think most people are misguided. Just on planet Earth, I think most people are misguided. I think there are leaders at Concerned Student 1950 who are devious. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, but at a certain point, ignorance becomes sin. And when you do this long enough and you're victimizing enough innocent people, the only innocent person who was actually victimized in this whole debacle was Tim Wolf, who didn't do anything, and is a white guy who lost his job for being a white guy. And if you're part of that, you should feel ashamed of yourself. You really should, because he didn't do anything to have that. You really didn't. So, you know, do I think they're devious? Do I think they're just fellow travelers? In the end, I'm not sure that it really matters. Disassociate yourself from people who do bad things, or you're going to be lumped in with them. That's just the way life works.
Hi, I'm Megan from the University of Central Missouri CRs. And I was just wondering, as a conservative black student, how do you feel that I should go about... How should I go about voicing my political views and values without being attacked by people who say that I'm not black enough or I don't fit in either way?
Yeah, I mean, the racism of the left is truly clear when you talk about black conservatives. I mean, everybody is black enough, unless they're Ben Carson, in which case they're not black enough, or Colin Powell, who's a Republican. It was amazing how Colin Powell switched from being not black enough to be the blackest guy on earth the minute they started supporting President Obama. All the questions just disappeared magically. When you ask how you avoid the attack, the answer is you can't. And one of the things that I tell all conservatives all over America is conservatives have a tendency to just kind of want to live our lives. And I have a wife, I have a kid. I do this for a career, but the truth is in my off time I don't like talking politics because it's my off time. And when I turn on ESPN and I see politics, I actually get deeply annoyed and upset because it feels like the assault is nonstop and all that. And that's true, I think, for conservatives all over the country. One of my mentors was Andrew Breitbart, and Andrew was fond of saying that you have to walk toward the fire. That you just have to embrace it. You have to embrace you're going to be called these names, and there's something deeply empowering about the idea that once you're called the name and it just bounces off of you, it's like you discovered a magic shield. Once someone says that you're not black enough, and you just say, no, you're just completely full of shit, then there's nothing they can do to you. What can they do to you? There's nothing they can do to you. You have to believe it in your own heart. You have to start questioning your own values and your own systems of thought for that to have any impact on you. So, be strong, be a good cheer, and understand that people who are your political enemies are out to get you, and they will get you by any means possible, and they are not honest, and they do say nasty things, but what they have is a weapon that has no power to it. Once you realize that, it's a very, very empowering feeling.
I'm the videographer whose video went viral last Tuesday. It's received 2.5 million views. I wanted to, you had me until you brought up Caitlyn Jenner for no reason and called her a man.
Well, it was asked, so it was
okay.
no reason.
I want to know why you think that the conservative media is picking up on this story so much, whereas the liberal media has not been reporting on this to the extent that you guys did. Full disclosure, I did talk on to Breitbart's Alex Strassel.
Yeah, some of our reporters, right, yeah.
Yep, and that interview was a mistake. But I do want to know why you think that.
Why the imbalance?
Do you think that the conservative media is using this to push their agenda?
Yes, and it's a factual agenda. So yes, I mean, I'm not going to pretend that, I'm honest enough to acknowledge that everybody has a bias. And so obviously, people tend to push stories that back their points of view. It just so happens that this story backs the true contention that folks on the left want to shut down free speech and are not particularly interested in it when it conflicts with what they want. So yeah, I mean, there's a reason the left isn't going to pay attention to it, because it cuts against what they want to say. The left wants to say that offensiveness is a significantly more important, and being non-offensive is a more important value than free speech. This is what they want to say. And the right says free speech is a more important value than non-offensiveness. So in that battle, your video was a perfect example of free speech. It was a clarifying moment. It was a clarifying moment for a lot of people who saw that for the left, non-offensiveness is more important than freedom of speech.
Okay. Do you know why the conservative media has covered this story to a greater extent than Tim Wolf resigning? The only fallout from my video has been that Melissa Click has resigned from her journalism appointment. She's still on with the community.
Well, I mean, I can tell you that Professor Click has become a meme in conservative circles, and she's become the face of the American left fascist movement with her, pointing at you to get out and calling for muscle against you. So, the idea I don't think that the story is over for Professor Click. As far as the coverage of Tim Wolf, the reason that yours went viral is because this actually does not have to do with conservative versus left. There's just a difference between video and no video. Video is something people can watch, it's something people can share. This is why, folks, if you actually want to make a difference in the world, you all have cell phones, you're all journalists now. Congratulations. Go out, get a story, you can break it, it can become a big thing like this. Right? So that's really the moral of the story.
Speaking of next election, this question really is unrelated, but
yeah.
I'm just curious who you think is the best president for America.
The guy who I think would be the best president is Ted Cruz. I like a number of the Republican candidates. I like Ted Cruz. I like Marco Rubio. I think he's wrong on immigration. But honestly, I would take a flaming bag of dog pieces over Hillary Clinton.
With the football team kind of boycotting their activities until I'm not sure how much of a sports commentator you are.
They sound like they're 5-5.
With their boycott and then Finkel's subsequent endorsement of that, although it wasn't, I believe, like a big impetus in Tim Wolf resigning, what kind of precedent do you think that sets for other, let's just say, revenue-producing groups on campus to basically extort their administration?
Yeah, no, I've written a column. I think that college sports should basically go the way of dodo bird. I don't understand why you're giving academic scholarships to people who have no intention of fulfilling their academic criteria, who see the scholarship as not enough and want to be paid. It's an academic institution. I don't know how these two things got linked. I mean, we all enjoy going to football games, but that's why I pay for NFL Sunday. Right? I mean, this is the idea that taxpayers, especially at state-sponsored universities, taxpayers are supposed to pay a portion of salary, that's $3.1 million, in order so they can have a football team for a bunch of people who, again, are going to major in phys ed. It's just, it's nonsensical to me. It doesn't make sense as an academic institution, and it demonstrates where the real power base of these universities lies, which is kind of pathetic.
Obviously, in the news, there have been a number of racist incidents around campus that have been kind of blown out of proportion by groups like Concerned Student to be.
It's everybody. It's everybody.
Yeah, and it's being blown out of proportion to be indicative of this racist system. I was wondering how much you think the substance abuse culture, which is also just as prevalent on college campuses. I was wondering how much you think that's behind these isolated incidents, and how, if at all, should we combat that, and what effect?
Okay, so I guess the question is, is this all because of drunken luxury? And no, I think that a racist who gets drunk is a racist, and a non-racist who gets drunk doesn't naturally become a racist. I mean, I think racists are racists. I also think that on a university campus, what do you have, 30,000, 35,000 students here? And a campus of this size, it would be shocking if you had no racist incidents across that campus. It's a big crap. I mean, racist incidents happen. The question is, what does the system do about it? And in this case, the system didn't do anything wrong about it. Now, I've been walking to synagogue, and when I walk to synagogue, I dress exactly like I am now. I wear a suit, and I wear my yarmulke. And when I walk to synagogue, You know, I've had incidents where people drive past me in a car and shout anti-Semitic slurs. I didn't call for the mayor of Los Angeles, where I live, to resign. It wasn't his fault. I mean, this is the question is, what does the system do about it? Not, are there individual races? Of course there are individual races. And of course, this is, and here's the thing. This is where not only the legal framework, but the cultural framework comes into play, which is, once people do this, if somebody is caught, you know, saying the N-word to a black student on campus, and their name is blown up in the media, how hard do you think it's going to be for that person to get a job for a long time? That's the first thing. Anytime they Google that person's name, that's the first thing that comes up, and no one wants to hire a racist. There are very severe societal ramifications and penalties for this kind of behavior. And I believe fully in the idea that the culture and the society should punish people who act badly. The idea that the administration is responsible for every little thing that goes on is this godlike view of governance and the administration that I find personally reprehensible. Take responsibility for yourselves and recognize that individuals do bad things, and that's not always the fault of the people in charge.
Okay, so this is from Summer at Summer Elizum. She wants to know, has there ever been an experience in which you thought public expression went too far and it should be curbed?
Sure. I mean, in terms of, should the government come in and prosecute somebody for public expression? I've actually changed my views on this over time. I've become significantly more libertarian over the past 7 years as I've watched the president try to crack down on particular kinds of public expression. You know, do I think that local communities have the capacity? I do think there's a difference between federal, state, and local. So let me start there. I think that there are two questions. One is the principle of freedom of speech, and what would I want in my community? And one is what is in the power of local communities versus federal communities. And these are actually two separate questions. I don't think the federal government should be in the business of regulating speech in pretty much any way. I think that local communities, if my little town doesn't want pornography in my little town, I think my little town has the right to ban pornography. I don't think that the founders died on the fields of battle to protect Hugh Hefner putting out naked ladies.
Hi. I would ask what you would say to some of the students who are kind of indifferent about what's going on, maybe not really far to the left or super far to the right either, and just kind of want to get their degree, get a good job, and move on with their lives. Kind of like the gentleman at Dartmouth who just said, when they were chanting Black Lives Matter in the library, he just said, I'm just trying to study for a test tomorrow.
Yeah.
What would your suggestion be for those?
I mean, my suggestion would be, it's a perfect example of one that you're using. My example would be, well, you're not getting to study, are you? Right? Meaning that you can try to stay apathetic, you can try to stay out of harm's way, you can try to avoid the battle, you can try to maintain your neutrality, you can try to say that I just want to live my life and be left alone. The left will not leave you alone. You are a tool. Okay, for the left, which is in search of utopia, every human being is either a tool or an obstacle. You're either somebody that they can get to ally with them and they can force that, or you're an obstacle to be overcome and to be destroyed. And so, you know, it's the easy answer is always, I'm just trying to study for a test, and I have sympathies. I think all of us in life have other priorities that are higher than politics. The problem is politics and truth. So, you know, if you want to study for that test, at a certain point you're going to have to say these people are behaving terribly, and they need to get out of the library. Right? If you don't do that, you're not going to get to study in the library. And if there are no behavioral standards whatsoever, then there is no safe space for you if there are no behavioral standards. I mean, we live in a common society. There are behavioral standards by which we all abide, and these include not being aggressive in manner for people who have not done anything to you.
How do you explain the rise of Donald Trump and how he is still in the front?
Okay, so this one is always my favorite question. I've been waiting all night. Okay, so the rise of Donald Trump is explained by a couple of factors. The first factor explaining the rise of Donald Trump is that Donald Trump is a hammer in search of a nail, right? And everybody is so annoyed with politics and politicians that we just want to see somebody get hammered. And so Donald Trump, you'll notice, as a hammer in search of a nail, sometimes he hits a puppy, right? Sometimes he hits a glass pane, sometimes he hits a child, and sometimes he hits a nail. And when he hits a nail, it's great. So in the span of the last 4 days, we saw Donald Trump go from a 0 to a 10, right? He did his horrible speech in Iowa, where he was reenacting Ben Carson's stabbing story and taking his belt buckle and moving to the side of the podium and unbuttoning and moving around his belt buckle like a crazy guy. And everybody was going, what is this? And then 2 days later, or the next day actually, the Paris attacks happened, and he goes on national television and he's asked what he wants to do, and he said, I would bomb the shit out of them. And most Americans go, okay, I get that. I'm there. All right. You know, I don't need a 5-paragraph essay. I'm cool. We got it, right? Trump has a gift for speaking at the lowest common denominator level, which actually, it actually is a gift. I mean, it means that you communicate with the most people. And he also has a gift for the soundbite, both for good and for bad. He's also a dramatic slap in the face to the Republican establishment. There's a whole side of Republicans who just say, you guys were trying to push Jeb Bush on us? Well, screw you. We're going with Donald Trump. Which is why all these outsider candidates are doing so well. So, I find Trump highly amusing as a candidate. I find him highly amusing as a person. Would I vote for him in a primary? No. Do I think that I will say one thing about Donald Trump. Donald Trump, there's a solid case to be made. This is not even meant to be funny. There's a solid case to be made that he has a better shot of being president than Marco Rubio.
Shapiro, my name is Victor Maggio. I'm a reporter from Chicago. I cover a lot of the shootings in Chicago. That's what I do. And I've been doing this since 2013. And I don't see Black Lives Matter anywhere in Chicago. I don't see them protesting. I don't see them acknowledging what's happening there. Shouldn't that alone delegitimize this group?
Absolutely. Black Lives Matter is a joke. Black Lives Matter is a movement that is designed specifically and solely to crack down on political enemies of the left. The Black Lives Matter movement is a racist movement. If there are any converse movements in White Lives Matter, everyone would recognize it as such. And again, the Black Lives Matter crew doesn't say that all Black Lives matter. They say the only Black Lives that matter are black people who are killed by white people, which is a tiny, tiny number across the United States. I mean, if we were to reverse the situation, significantly more white people are killed by black people every year than black people are killed by white people every year. But the reality is, if you actually want to make life better for if black lives actually matter, there would be a few things that you'd want to do. The number one thing you'd want to do is stop aborting black babies. More black babies were aborted in New York City last year than were born in New York City last year. And literally entire generations of black people have been wiped off the face of the earth by people who are getting abortions. The second thing that you would do is actually have a very heavy police presence in high crime areas, because that's the only way that you develop a culture of property ownership and investment that creates jobs, that creates better lifestyles for people. And the third thing that you would do is cut off benefits and diminish benefits for people making bad decisions. You don't incentivize people to have babies out of wedlock. Right? Our culture has now conferred hero status on people who put themselves in self-victimized situations. My wife's in medical school over at UCLA, and my wife has made a lot of good decisions in her life. The number one, of course, is marrying me. The number two good decision for my wife, and she's watching this, I know she's laughing. The number two good decision for my wife is that we were both virgins until we got married. We're religious people, and she, we had our first baby about 2 years ago, January 2014, and she took a year off of school to take care of the baby because she wanted to spend time with the baby, and then she went back to school, right? And that's just what she did. She was not conferred hero status. There was a girl in her class who was a single mother and had to work her way through being a single mother. And she's granted this sort of hero status. So look at all the challenges she's had to overcome. Right, challenges that she made for herself. I'm glad she overcame them. It would have been better if she didn't make the challenges for herself in the first place. We need to stop creating heroes out of people who make poor decisions. Right? It's great that you can overcome a challenge, but don't create challenges for yourself and then be celebrated for the challenges that you created for yourself. So, incentivizing fathers to stay in the home would be a massive thing. And again, if there's one thing that's leading to crime in the black community right now, it is the escalating rate of single motherhood, because that's true in every community that has high crime rates, it has high rates of single motherhood for a very specific reason. Young men commit crimes, young men are not afraid of their mothers. Right? Every guy in this audience right now knows that at age 15, if your mom told you to cut it out, the chances were she's going to have to call your dad. Right? The fact is, young men do not fear an authority structure that comes from mom. It's just not the way that it works. So, there are many things that Black Lives Matter actually could do if they actually believe that Black Lives Matter, but they don't. What they actually believe is just that America's a racist, terrible system, and it has to be torn out. It has to be torn out by the roots, and whatever is available for them to do this, they will do. And this is true for most of the left, including the Concerned Student 1950.
Carson has been an increasingly popular presidential candidate, but a lot of people have had questions about his lack of political background, and I was just wondering what your take and stance on that was.
So I think Ben Carson is a very good man. I think that Ben Carson says a lot of things that are worthwhile, and he creates debates that I think ought to be had. I think that he has strength of character and fortitude. His lack of experience is not really what troubles me. I don't know where he stands on certain issues because he doesn't have enough knowledge to stand on the issue. Right? So when he's asked about foreign policy, maybe he has great principles, maybe he doesn't, but he's kind of waving around in the wind. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And so my view of presidential candidates is, I think one of the great myths in American life is that being president is the world's most difficult job. You have a personal service staff of 2 million people. I'm pretty sure that you can do it. This idea that you have to have tremendous executive experience, it's not like running a company because you never get to fire anybody. They all have government contracts. It really has much more to do. Being a good president has much more to do with having a good value system than it does with having tremendous executive experience or tremendous foreign policy experience. I want to know what your values are. So on domestic policy, I know Ben Carson's values, and I like Ben Carson's values, at least the vast majority of them. On foreign policy, I don't know Ben Carson's values, and so I don't know enough to like his values. But values, to me, trump experience every time. It wouldn't bother me that Abraham Lincoln had served a single term in the Illinois Congress before becoming president and losing a Senate race to Stephen Douglas. That doesn't bother me. And it didn't. And I thought it was a stupid argument that Obama had no experience and therefore he shouldn't be president. I don't think inexperience I don't think inexperience explains the terrible president Obama has been. We've had many inexperienced presidents and none of them have done this kind of damage. Ideology, values explain the terrible president that President Obama has been. He shouldn't have been voted for because of his values, not because he didn't. If he'd sat in the Senate for 7 terms, he would be just as radical and just as bad in his job. Thanks so much.